Absolutely. Yeah. Like that's something that we're focusing on and thinking like nobody's gonna be tougher than them.
Right.
So, and that's exactly how I felt. Like the first hard sparring I had for this camp was with Bojan.
Mm-hmm.
He is a UFC veteran. He's a PFL fighter now.
Fights next week, Thursday, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. And I remember right after his fight in PFL, the last fight that he had was like a week after. I was like, hey, man, can you come to Saturday sparring? I need somebody bigger. I just have to, you know? And he just beat the shit out of me.
Well, he's a multiple Muay Thai champion, too.
Right.
Multiple-time Muay Thai champion.
Yeah, and he's so strong, it's stupid, man. And he, like, even Elliot Marshall, the head coach, one time I heard him training wrestling, and he was like, how the fuck are you so strong, bro? It's like, yeah, he is. And so, like, getting punched by them and feeling like I was still winning, because as I was striking, I was counting my points in my head.
Yeah.
And I could win some points. Obviously, I would have gotten knocked the fuck out if you really wanted to. Sure. But it gave me the confidence that I could beat pretty much anyone, you know. And getting there, you never really know who you're gonna look at,
right?
You know?
Welcome to the Prize Fighting Business. I'm your host, Daniel Casado, and today my guest is Knock Muay and amateur national Muay Thai champion, Pedro Meyer. Pedro is a competitive Muay Thai fighter with 14 fights overall, including 4 smokers and a 7-3 record in sanctioned competition. He's the former Colorado State Muay Thai champion and now the new 2019 TBA's National Muay Thai champion in the A-Class 186-pound division. In addition to training and competing at a high level, Pedro is also a professional musician. He coaches at Easton Training Center in Denver, and he works for the Glory Kickboxing promotion in fighter logistics and administration. So let's take a look at my conversation with Pedro Meyer about his martial arts journey and his Muay Thai career up to this point. Pedro, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. What's up?
Absolutely. So you are the 2019 A-Class 186-pound National Muay Thai champion from the TBA's World Expo. So that was just last weekend. When this comes out, it'll probably be about a week and a half after that. We're about a week after that now. So how does your body feel? How do you feel?
I feel great. I forgot that it happened. I had my belt by my bed, and I was just working. I was like doing other stuff, and then I looked back. I was like, oh, yeah, that happened, didn't it? It was way less satisfying than I expected, winning the actual belt.
Sure.
Like, in the beginning of the year, the coaches had this sheet of paper, and they were like, oh, you got to write down your goals, because when you write it down, it becomes real, da-da-da. And I wrote down, I just want a belt, like any national belt. And now I won it, and I was like, that was cool. But what was really cool was to have everybody there with me, you know, some won, some lost, but we all fought, and we all fought well. And I was like, oh, so that's what they're talking about when it comes to the satisfaction of winning, because the belt is like, after a year, it just becomes something that you have in your house that you have to
a possession
clean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm leaving it at the gym.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, there's so much there that I like. I mean, the idea that, you know, you work so hard over years to get this. You make it a goal at the beginning of the year. You manifest this destiny. You manifest the reality. You made it happen with your team. But, you know, Rose Namajunas was talking about it recently, how maybe being champion and having that belt is more of a possession than anything else. And, you know, it doesn't feel quite as good as she originally expected. But you're also speaking to the fact that you got to enjoy it with your team. So more the experience is what you enjoyed, it sounds like.
Yeah. And it's weird because, you know, even when you lose, it's never to waste, right? Because you go through this training camp, and whatever it is, it's always beneficial. But when it really gets to the time of the fight, you know, there's a lot of glamour surrounding fighting, right? With the movies and the honor and the samurai, and like, we train so hard to get there and show what we're capable of. Dude, by the time he gets to the fight, I just want to get it done.
Yes.
I just want a cheesecake. I want a fucking tiramisu, you know?
Yeah.
I just want to get it done. So, you know, I'm not going to be there and like, I just went there and did what I had to do, you know? I thought, we were talking about, me, I wrote on Facebook, I was like, all I could think of was like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. But literally what I was thinking right after that, it was like, man, I'm reading this book about this war band and their orcs and yada yada. Cool. And I'm like, every now and then, the story, they're just walking down the forest or whatever, and they get ambushed and then they have to fight for their lives.
Right.
So I'm thinking, man, we all got it so good,
Oh, yeah.
And we just have sometimes to do the things that we don't want to do and do it well. And that was just a very good representation for me because I was like, well, do I really want to fight? Do I not want to fight? I don't know if everybody feels like that right before they step in the ring, but it really didn't matter. It's about controlling your mind and controlling what you're thinking about and being like, it doesn't matter if I want it or not, I'm going to win.
Yeah. I tend to think everybody feels that way. I tend to think at least at some level everybody feels that way. I read George St. Pierre's book. He talks about it, how he stays up at night weeks before the fight because he's constantly thinking, like, what is my opponent doing? What keeps him up at night is the idea that his opponent might be working harder than him, in this moment or in that hour or that day. What have I done? And Donald Cerrone talks about it, how he has these butterflies right before the fight that he can't control. And, so he just thinks, well, let's go. Let's embrace it. Let's do it. So I think it's just, Diego Sanchez yelling, yes, 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 on the way to the ring. It's just how people handle it.
Yeah. And I like these guys because they're honest fighters, right? There's a lot of bullshit when it comes to fighting.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm going to go there and fuck him up. I'm definitely going to win. Right. You don't know that, There's no chance it's going to be me. It doesn't matter how much better you are than the other person. There's always a chance.
Absolutely.
Like what happened with Paul Magliotti and Lobov, right?
Yeah.
You can't beat me. Like, he can't get better into the fight enough to beat me. And then he beat him,
A 500 fighter, 15 and 15, I think Lobov was, beat a world champion boxer in bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah, So there's a lot of bullshit, a lot of like trying to make you believe something that you don't really believe just by repeating it. Oh, I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best. Maybe you are, but there's always going to be somebody better than you. So if you're an asshole after you win, then you're really not the best, you know?
Yeah.
So there is something else other than just results that defines who's the best and who's not. And being honest about yourself, and I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan, and to him, fighting wasn't about winning. Fighting was about expressing yourself. And if you're not honest with yourself, you can't express yourself honestly. And that to me is the whole point of martial art, It's an art. And
absolutely.
That's what art is for.
Yeah, and I think it's a journey, like what you, I think, alluded to or what you touched on at the beginning is this idea that, you get this belt as an individual, but you want to give it to the gym because you got here through this teamwork, through these people supporting you. Yes, you put in the work and, you have a great achievement at the end of the day, but without the team, without the coaches, are you able to get there? Maybe not, though. It would be a lot more difficult for sure. So tell me about that. You're training with Easton Muay Thai. You're primarily out of the Easton Training Center in Denver, and your head coach, Sean Madden, is between those two gyms. So what did training look like for this fight, both kind of the team environment and your schedule?
So this was a training camp I was really proud of, actually. So Sean and Easton in general, so Sean, Ian, obviously Mike, the CEO, everybody has this mentality of one academy. So it wasn't like Denver and Boulder. It just happened that it's just different buildings.
Right.
But what Sean did is that he alternated this hard sparring sessions between Denver and Boulder to kind of solidify that, it's one thing, it's one academy, but we're training out of Boulder.
Right.
So he separated where 1 week was one week was the other. But I actually don't know if you know this, but what happened was I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer a couple months in April, right? Because I wasn't thinking about fighting. I was like,
Wow.
And then as soon as that happened, I was like, and then, well, when I scheduled my surgery, it was almost 5 weeks out to TBAs.
Wow.
Everybody was already training for it. Everybody was already signed up. Everybody who went, right? And I'm like, I was so nervous. I was like, you know what? I don't know when I'm going to be able to fight again this year. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fight again at all. Fuck it. I'm just doing it. So I did it. So I kind of jumped in when everybody was already geared up, starting it. And I just got lucky because I was going to do 182 pounds, but there was nobody on the bracket. And I was 190 pounds.
Okay. Oh, so I mean, you're not cutting, you won 186 pounds, you're not cutting much weight.
Exactly, yeah. So I just did 186 because that was the only bracket between 182 and 195. And I wasn't gonna do 195 because I'm 190. Yeah. Right? And I wasn't gonna do 182 because there was nobody there. So I didn't have to cut a lot of weight. So that was good for my training because, I was thinking also, man, this surgery is going to suck. Yeah. And I'm going to go to training camp and I have a good work ethic. I'm going to train, but I also don't want to diet my life away. Yeah. You know what I mean? A month before my surgery. Because I don't even know how long it's going to take me to recover in the first place.
What are they telling you? I mean, as far as like this surgery, like, did you know I can get this surgery and still be able to fight? Or was it kind of like, I'm going to train like I'm going to be able to fight, but it's a toss-up?
Well, I knew I signed up for TBAs after I scheduled my surgery. Okay. Because that's actually what happened. I didn't think about doing TBAs because I didn't know when my surgery was going to be. Because it could be the week of, the week before, the week after, whatever, Yeah. And I didn't know, so I was like, there's no way I'm going to do it. So when the doctor was like, yeah, you can do it at the end of July, that's when I was like, when is TBA again? Oh, June? Sweet. So sure, fine, I'll do it. Cool. So that's kind of what happened. So this training was all about me doing what I think is right for me. I didn't run as much as everybody else, but I did a lot of circuit training with light weights, a lot of bag work, because I've always felt like my conditioning gets better with that. Yeah. Last year when I ran a lot, I ran like everybody else, more on the mentality of just, well, they're doing it, so I'm going to do it too. Mm-hmm. I felt gassed the first 30 seconds of the fight. I wasn't gassed in my lungs, but my legs were just frozen. And it maybe was just mental, maybe it wasn't. But this time I didn't want any excuses. I was like, I'm going to do it the way I think. Obviously, I'm going to listen to the coaches. I'm not just going to go rogue. Sure. So, but I wanted to test it. I wanted to try it out. And it worked. My conditioning was much better than ever been. And I also was sparring with Elevation on Tuesdays. So they have the big glove.
And that's the pro MMA team.
Exactly, yeah. So the pro MMA team, Elevation, they have, 5 days a week. Every day they focus on something different. Tuesday they have big glove sparring with takedowns. And I don't know if you guys know, but Andrew Kaplan, he won TBAs at some point. I don't know what year. Drew Dober won twice, Aclass. So there are fighters there that have the experience with that rule set.
Drew Dober fights this weekend.
Right, yeah. I'm actually really excited for that fight.
Me too.
It's going to be awesome. And he has such good kickboxing. He's stupid, man. He has great movement. He helped me a lot. Kaplan just being taller than me. Chris Lockhart, he won the Bclass at 215 pounds. He's a monster. He's gigantic. So that helped me a lot too. Just getting different looks with different sizes and tough, man. They're the toughest people in Colorado. So
you got a bunch of different looks then. I mean, you're training Boulder some weeks, Denver, and then also getting the MMA team. So you got a lot of looks. That's good. And previous champions like you were speaking to. So, I mean, it's got to give you a certain level of confidence in your abilities to perform because of who you're training with. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. Like that's something that we're focusing on and thinking like nobody's going to be tougher than them.
Right.
So And that's exactly how I felt. Like the first hard sparring I had for this camp was with Bojan. Mm-hmm. He is a UFC veteran. He's a PFL fighter now.
Fights next week, Thursday, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. And I remember right after his fight in PFL, the last fight that he had was like a week after. I was like, hey, man, can you come to Saturday sparring? I need somebody bigger. I just have to, you know? And he just beat the shit out of me.
Well, he's a multiple Muay Thai champion, too.
Right.
Multiple-time Muay Thai champion.
Yeah, and he's so strong, it's stupid, man. And he, like, even Elliot Marshall, the head coach, one time I heard him training wrestling, and he was like, how the fuck are you so strong, bro? It's like, yeah, he is. And so, like, getting punched by them and feeling like I was still winning, because as I was striking, I was counting my points in my head. Yeah. and I could win some points. Obviously, I would have knocked the fuck out if you really wanted to.
Sure.
But it gave me the confidence that I could beat pretty much anyone, And
You're-
getting there, you never really know who you're gonna look at.
Right. Well, I mean, that's a good point to bring up too. You had 3 guys in your bracket with over 20 fights in various martial arts, but 2 of them with over 20 Muay Thai fights.
Yeah.
And you're coming into this Aclass tournament with about 12 fights at this time. So I mean, you could have done Bclass. What was the decision there to go for Aclass and that step up in competition?
Yeah. So last year the amount of fights to be Aclass was different, was smaller. It was 11 fights, and I had 11 fights last year, so I just went Aclass. And the thing about last year is we brought 4 people. Megan, she was a guest from Canada. She came train with us. It was me, Mari, Nishida, who also went today, and Kaya, who at the time was a junior. And what we did, the mentality was different. We went kind of to find out where we were in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like, none of us truly expected to win.
Yeah, sure.
So in the middle of the fight, when I saw that I was having a good fight, that I wasn't getting clocked, that I wasn't getting murdered, I was like, oh shit, maybe I can actually win. Obviously, that was a little too far in on the scorecard,
Sure.
and I ended up losing. But that was like, fuck, man, I can win Aclass? Sweet. So this year, they changed it to 13 fights.
Wow.
And I wasn't going to go back to Bclass.
Right.
I was like, well, I already did Aclass, and I felt I could have won. So I'm going to do Aclass again. I'd rather lose at Aclass than win Bclass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I did.
That's cool. I mean, that's part of the journey, right? You go on this exploratory mission essentially last year, kind of see what TBAs is about. You maybe aren't fully confident in your abilities at that time, but you get in the ring and you're like, oh, I'm holding my own with this guy. I'm holding my own with another A-class fighter when maybe I didn't at first envision myself as an A-class fighter. So now it gives you that confidence. Go back to training knowing that if I just make maybe these small adjustments, I can win it, and you did.
Yeah.
It's pretty big.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I still don't believe it happened. But,
yeah.
But I also don't want to blow the significance of it either.
Sure. Of course.
I mean, it's TBAs and it's a big deal.
It's a national tournament.
Yeah. If it was anybody else coming to me, oh, I won, I'll be like, that's such a big deal, man. Good
Sure,
for you.
Of course.
But because it's me talking to myself, I'm like, it's not that big of a deal.
But it is. I mean, it is a big deal. It's a national championship. You see in these other organizations people telling you they're the UK champion, they're the Denmark champion. I mean, cool.
Yeah.
But that's like the size of a state.
That's true. It is.
National Muay Thai Championship. There's 50 states in the U.S. There's a lot of people. It's 300 million people.
Yeah.
So it's certainly a significant accomplishment.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you feel now? You're again about a week after the fight. You don't look banged up. You say your body feels good. Like, are you eating? Are you taking a break from training? What does your life look like now?
Well, so I'm going to be out of town a lot this June or July, so I am not training a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely eating like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
But no, I don't want to go crazy and, gain too much weight and then have to play this game of gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight.
Right.
I'm already heavier than usual just because of all the weight training I was doing for the fight and before. So I'm just going to keep eating normal and just try to keep my brain wired around eating for a fight, I guess.
Yeah, just kind of stay in shape, stay fight ready, as opposed to have to get into fight shape.
Yeah, and I don't like the anxiety of accepting fights too far before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't like, I got 2 months before my fight. That just gives me crazy anxiety. One.
Yeah.
Two, it's just hard to plan anyways. You don't know what's going to happen in 2 months.
Yeah.
So I like taking fight with 4 weeks notice.
Yeah.
And just keep training.
And just know you're in a good spot.
Yeah.
To take that fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It helps my brain.
Yeah, I believe. No, I mean, I agree with you. I think, the further out a fight is, the more time you have to think about it, and thinking about it's not necessarily a good thing.
Exactly.
So, what was one of the things you ate after you no longer had to worry about weight, no longer have to worry about fighting? You get home and you're looking in your pantry, you're going to the supermarket, and you're like, I'm gonna get something tasty.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because when we're, the last week I had to cut a little bit of weight or just maintain the weight I had. So I, on purpose, didn't buy anything in the grocery store for a week.
Yeah.
But man, yesterday I just had the best tiramisu of my life. And it was so big, and usually I would eat it all, but I just had half. And then later that day I had another half. So it felt like one day's worth of tiramisu. And I'm impressed with how satiated I am.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Yeah,
I think so.
satiated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I don't feel like I'm craving as much, but you never know.
Sure.
Champion on the ring, champion on the buffet table, dude.
That's right. Cool. So normally when you're training for the fight, it sounds like you would be in a lower weight class, but for this you're 186, walking around at 194 pounds. So it doesn't sound like you're having to cut weeks out. What did the weight cut look like for you?
So for a few weeks I wasn't worried about weight at all, right? Because I knew I could do that in a week. 190 to 186.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to cut weight. I wanted to diet down to 186 because I wanted to lose some weight anyways.
Okay.
Especially thinking that, well, what if I had to do 182, right? So I kind of just wanted to do it just to see if I could do it, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't get a lot of help. I had a lot of resources that I could have reached out to, but I just kind of was like, it's just 4 pounds. I'm just going to try to do it. And it was funny because my weight didn't change at all for 4 or 5 weeks.
Wow.
And I'm like...
Even though you're picking up intensity.
Yeah. And I was starting to get nervous.
Yeah.
And I wasn't eating... Like, I knew I didn't have to cut a lot of weight, but I wasn't eating sugar, not sugar, but like sweets and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing that. I wasn't getting drunk. So I was like, what the hell's going on? And then the Saturday, the very last sparring session... all of a sudden, it went from 188 to like 186.8. It was like,
wow,
sweet.
Wow.
Then I just didn't eat for a week, and it was all good.
Cool. What does it look like during fight camp? What is your diet generally looking like? Are you like salad, chicken?
Yeah, what I do is, for dieting, I always think about cheating myself and setting myself up for success, right? If I get too methodical, I'm not going to follow it, and that's classic.
I like that.
Yeah. So what I was doing is, one, watch my protein intake. The more protein you eat, the less you're going to eat of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's just so much you can eat until you're full, right? Mm-hmm. So I was upping my protein, and I was really focusing on eating more carbs the days that I trained the most.
Okay.
So
just for that energy.
Yeah. And, I wanted to really focus on not getting tired in the fight.
Yeah.
So I was playing around a little bit with the amount of carbs that I was having, either in sparring or just like conditioning or whatever, and see how far I could push until I felt, when you feel like your sugar levels are depleted and your heart start beating, but you're not necessarily tired.
Yep.
I was trying to get there, like pushing to get there, but eating so I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? To see how far I could go. And it kind of worked out. So 1 salad a day at least to decrease the calorie intake. That was an easy adjustment, because all I had to remember is like 1 salad a day.
Yeah.
Be cool on the dressing. Don't eat all of it. And that's most definitely going to decrease your calorie intake.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's leaves.
And it's light, yeah. When you talk about carbs, are you saying like spaghetti, pasta, rice type carbs, or like potatoes, vegetables, fruits?
I wasn't very discriminatory.
Sure.
I was just kind of taking everything, but you have to really care about the portion control. So,
got it. So for you, it's more size.
Yeah.
How much you're eating, calorie intake.
Yeah, and only because I knew I didn't have to cut a ton of weight.
Okay.
Right? If I did, then it would have been different.
Sure.
But like pasta, I wouldn't get a bowl. I would put around 60 grams of actual pasta that would have however many grams of carbs.
Mm-hmm.
Not that many, and then I would just fill up the rest of my plate with veggies and stuff with lower carb or lower calories.
Yeah.
And chicken, beef. Like I got to eat beef because I didn't have to cut a lot of weight. I wouldn't have if I did. So it gave me some leeway to eat other things, but I couldn't go and eat, dessert every day.
Right. Well, so, I think what's impressive is your level of self-awareness, right? You have this understanding that if I create this strict diet, I might be able to write it out on day one, but the likelihood of sticking through it for 5 weeks is maybe not truly realistic. So instead, you have these broad guidelines. Make sure you limit the portions that you're eating. Make sure I'm getting enough carbs to be sustained throughout the day. And then otherwise, just eat fairly clean. Don't be an idiot.
Exactly, right? Well, when I moved to the U.S., I was 210 pounds.
Wow.
And I was, because in Brazil, I'm from Brazil, by the way.
Cool.
Let's everybody know that.
We'll jump in there.
Yeah, right? So I used to live, other countries, it's normal for you to live with your parents for a little longer. So I used to live with my grandmother. So I would train, come back at like midnight, and I was lasagna, So I got big fast, right? So when I came back here, the dieting part, it wasn't thinking about fighting, because when I came to the U.S., my first fight was at 207 pounds. It was like a smoker. Then I fought at 190. Then I fought at 185. Then I fought at 170. Wow. Then now I'm fighting 186. So to me, the weight for fighting never really, it didn't take a lot of space in my head. I've always been like, whatever Sean tells me, hey, you need to fight at this weight, I kind of take it as a challenge of like, okay, just to see if I can do it. I'm sure I can, so I would do it. But to me, paying attention to dieting was always about actually losing weight.
Yeah, being just a healthy person more than trying to fight at a certain weight class.
Exactly. And that's the thing about fighting camp. It's not something that you should think about as a block of time in your life. It should be little adjustments to your lifestyle where if you want to do this forever or professionally or whatever, you have to make sure that that's part of your personality. It's not just like a chunk.
Well, at least that's the more sustainable way to do it.
Yeah, right. That's the smart way to do it.
No, I mean, I think that's a really great perspective. And, something that maybe people that are taking it on as an individual don't look at. They might have this idea of self-awareness, like I'm going to implement this program on myself, but is it truly being self-aware if you do have something that's unrealistic, if you're creating this detailed plan that you can't actually stick to, when in reality what might be more effective is just living your lifestyle a certain way, just making those small tweaks in your lifestyle to be healthier in general. And
that being said, it's not like I haven't done the strict stuff.
Sure,
you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because it really feeds on experience.
Yes.
I've done the if it fits your macros thing. It really worked, but I couldn't sustain it.
It's a lot. It's a lot to keep track of. It's a lot to do.
It's a pain in the ass have to weigh everything that you, like the coffee that I'm drinking here.
Yeah.
Not the coffee, just if it's pure coffee, but if you put stuff on it, then you have to count that as every little thing. And I did it for 3 months because I was like, I'm going to finish what I started. Yeah. And then after that, I was like, never again. And then I did keto for 3 weeks because I just wanted to see. First, I wanted to eat bacon and not feel guilty about.
Yeah, I love bacon.
And 2, I just wanted to see if it worked because all these people are like, it really works out. And it worked.
Yeah,
I
lost
lost some weight, but it was hard to train on it.
Yeah.
My legs were cramping and all that stuff. So you do things to see how you feel with it, and then you kind of keep what works. And
so that's what you do. I mean, you're more trial and error. See what works for you personally. There's these general ideas floating around the internet: keto, meat diet, whatever, Atkins, cutting out the gluten.
Yeah.
And then you just see what works for you as an individual.
And educate yourself over it, right?
Yeah.
Like Nick Maverick is one of the guys he's a brown belt at Easton, Denver.
Very fit dude.
He's super fit, and he's huge on keto. He's
really?
Like, I haven't eaten carbs in years.
Yeah.
And it really works for him, you
sure.
know. And he let me borrow this book, Keto for Cancer or whatever, and is this really badass scientist and talking about how keto really helps with cancer regression and stuff. So I'm probably gonna give it a crack.
Yeah, why not?
You just gotta put yourself out of your comfort zone sometimes, and you can't just live a life who's comfortable. That's just kind of pathetic.
I think when you're comfortable, you're wrong.
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
Cool. So what do you? I mean, when you're right now, right? Are you thinking, I want to lose weight, I want to gain weight? I mean, do you think about this, or is it more, again, like you said, just small things in your life day to day? Like, I'm just going to be a little bit healthier here. I'm going to be a little bit healthier there.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. It's always kind of like up and down, but not too far up where it's almost hard. It's too hard to go down. It's not too down. It's too hard to go up.
Yeah.
What I would like is to, I'm just going to see how training goes. What I really want to do is go back to Jujitsu. It's been a while, and I don't like when people beat me up. So I wanna go back to that, see how that's gonna affect my body, because it's way more isometric.
Yes.
See what happens, and then kind of build up from there.
He just checks the camera sometimes to make sure they're still going.
Oh.
Cool. So, and you're a blue belt in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Cool. So how long have you done jiu-jitsu?
Since I moved to the U.S., so that's been 6 years.
And you just do it on and off when you're not in fight camp?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
So what happens is I was doing just as much as I was doing Muay Thai when I started. And then I started teaching at Easton. And then, the days that I was doing jiu-jitsu, I was now teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't stop training Muay Thai because I was teaching it. So you have to keep yourself in shape and current, and you have to have credibility to teach.
Right.
So for a while, I just couldn't figure out my schedule, and now I still can't. But I'm like you, I just have to figure out what I'm gonna sacrifice,
right,
to get back to it. But
it's always sacrifice and finding balance.
Yeah, but I do it for fun, man. Like it's fun to push yourself and find out what you're capable of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that cardio idea, right, that you were bringing up earlier, as far as, you can run, or you can get your cardio doing bag work or pad work.
Yeah.
And maybe that bag work and pad work's a little more applicable to actually fighting than running. I know personally, running, it makes me feel good in fight camp because I feel like I'm doing something, I'm out there, I'm pushing myself. Mentally, it's always a battle. I mean, you always have to break through at least one or two walls when you're running. So you get that aspect of it, but I agree. I mean, I feel tighter in my legs. I feel tighter in my lower back. I don't know that I'm getting as much out of practice if I'm pushing it in the morning when I go to practice in the evening. So, I mean, there is some kind of balance there maybe, but there is a strong argument. There are a lot of fighters that say what you're saying, that they get their cardio from the pad work and being in the gym, and they don't do the road work.
Sean's gonna be so pissed at us.
Well, it's just different schools of thought, and sometimes I mean, it's one thing if you're being lazy, right? Anyone can look at someone and say, look, you're not running, you're not pushing yourself in the gym, you're not doing what it takes if you truly want to win a fight.
Right.
But I don't know that running is the absolute metric that you would decide on someone pushing themselves or not.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. And that's the thing too, like mentally for me, running is a little too passive.
Yeah.
Because you're running and you have to keep in your mind that you can't run too fast because then you're going to, not be able to finish it. But you don't want to run too slow because you want to push yourself, right? And I had this conversation with Steve Eisman. We were talking after practice about conditioning in general. And to me, how the circuit training, putting a time limit into your workout, like a round in a fight, when you get tired and you see that weight and you have to lift it, to me, that's way more mentally challenging than have to this is
true.
I'm tired. This is boring. I can hear my breathing. That mental battle, to me, is different, or is less similar than the mental battle on the fight than it is the mental battle of lifting weights when you're tired and the fight. You know what I'm saying?
I like that. That is, at least in my opinion, that does seem very, very true to my situations where, focusing on a heavy deadlift or a heavy hang clean, you have to be there. Otherwise, you could get hurt.
And it's the same to me as it is in the fight,
Yeah.
And then, the clinch, the guy's heavy. You have to actually use your muscles.
Right.
It's not just cruising. I'm not just punching light and try to, because everybody can do 100 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can fight 5-minute rounds. It depends on what pace you're going to put on it, right?
Yes.
You can throw one punch the whole 5 rounds or the whole 5 minutes, but you did it, So if you really want to be a volume fighter or a power fighter, obviously you want to have a little bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like weightlifting, obviously not the bodybuilding thing, but like
functional
lifting with the time constraint of circuits really helps me.
Well, and the circuits keep your heart rate elevated. They work your recovery. I mean, a big part of the fighting is being able to explode, recover quickly, fight for a round, sit in your corner, recover quickly. So the recovery aspect's a lot, and that's where the intensity interval training or circuit training is going to come in. And I do think, to be fair, running, if you're working in sprints there, that's going to help with the explosiveness, help with that recovery aspect, similar to how pads or a bag would do. But, the applicability in the fight is that idea that, at least in my experience, sometimes you are in your head and you're like, dude, go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that concentration, that focus, maybe you picked it up from hitting that deadlift, in the fifth set that was a struggle or whatever it is.
That's exactly how I feel about it. And I'm not trying to ditch running, right?
Sure.
It has its function. And I was watching one of the Joe Rogan podcasts with Aziz from Star.
Yes. Yeah.
And they were talking about why does Conor McGregor always gas often?
Right.
And it was like, oh, maybe it's genetic. Maybe he just like his muscles just twitch in a way where he gets a lot of explosion, a lot of power, but that takes a toll on his cardio.
Sure.
I don't know. I'm not gonna be here saying that's what happens to me or whoever. But the point is, as you progress in your life or your career, you find things that work and things that don't. And it doesn't work the same for everyone. And it's the same with diet. Some people lose weight really fast with this food or that food. So the adaptability of training to me is really the most important and overlooked things in fighting.
Yeah.
Most people are like, this is what works.
Sure.
Does it?
Maybe. Works for some people. Works for you maybe. Or works for your student maybe. Yeah, I mean, McGregor's an interesting situation because the opposite end of the spectrum is a Nate Diaz who's all volume, all cardio, pushing you and dragging you into this deep water. Yeah. McGregor wants to knock you out. I mean, that's his mentality. That's the way he's training. He's training to get the one-punch knockout or the two-punch pretty combo as opposed to grinding you out and out-voluming you. So, I mean, maybe it's his body, maybe it's his genetics, but I think it's also how he trains. He's training for that style of fighting. Like you said, he found that worked for him up to this point in his career. He's going to keep going with it. He's going to do what works for him.
Yeah. And something that really stuck with me was when Neil Magny lost to Damian Maia.
Yep.
And then I think it was a couple weeks after doing the elevation trainings, or was it Jujitsu, whatever it was, Elliot was making a speech. And he was like, it gets to a level that you can't be good at everything. Right. You can't be the best at everything. You have to bring them to your game.
Yes.
And then you have to find, physically what game suits you better, And obviously MMA is easier to see that because you have actual different, it's a wider variety of techniques.
Right.
But when it comes to just Muay Thai or just kickboxing, there's a bunch of different ways to fight as well, right? So you have pressure, you can just power,
I wish I knew the Muay Thai styles off the top of my head. I admittedly don't, but it is cool. And I saw that when I went to Thailand. You see the different styles. It's amazing. Like in the U.S., you see like an MMA guy against a Muay Thai guy, and like, oh, that Muay Thai guy's got way better technique. Anytime the MMA guy ducks his head because that's what he would do in an MMA fight, that knee's up the middle or whatever. But in Thailand, you see maybe this guy dominate the first 2 rounds with clean technique, he's well-rounded, but then those last 3 rounds, that other guy just walks forward, wades through, and he's just looking for knees, looking for elbows, and he's willing to take those first 2 rounds of you looking pretty because he knows you'll get tired and he'll be able to wear you down. And, there's all those different styles in Muay Thai alone. But the people that are the best, even at that individual style or overall, are the ones that can dictate where the fight is, like you said. Yeah. That's why wrestlers seem to do so well in MMA, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. They can keep it on the feet if they feel good on the feet, or they can take it to the ground if they're struggling on the feet, especially if they're a high-level wrestler. And you see that in Muay Thai, too. So it's cool seeing when people are very good, they choose where the fight happens.
Yeah, and that's something that also, like, I feel like I just pay attention to these good one-liners and I think about it a lot. But when Conor lost to Mayweather, he was like, wow, what really impressed me was that every time he came out of the bench after every round, it was like a different fighter was coming because of the adjustments that he was making every time to get to the point where he just knocked me out whenever he wanted to.
Wow.
He didn't literally say knock me out whenever.
But I mean, you could tell Floyd was, at least the last 3 rounds of that fight, he's kind of looking for it. Do I want to put him out here?
Yeah, and it's experience. He knows. He knew he was more dangerous in the beginning. He knew he was less dangerous as the fight goes on. And then he adapted after every round, and that's something that we saw on TBAs.
Yeah,
the ability of adapting during the rounds because you don't know who you're fighting, and to us amateurs, it's not like we have a big pool of tape to go watch on other people,
right?
So you have to adapt during the first round, do whatever you can, and then the second round you make the adjustments, and you have to carry on the adjustments. So it is really a big team effort because when you're in the middle of a fight, sometimes you're losing, sometimes you're winning. and you have to depend on your coaches to see it.
Yeah.
And then you have to the coaches depend on you to actually go and implement it.
Right.
You know?
It's hard to know what's going on in the middle of a fight sometimes.
Yeah.
Those coaches seeing it from the outside perspective can holler in there, and hopefully you can make those adjustments. But I mean, that has to be something that gets easier to do over time as far as making the adjustments.
Yeah.
Right. With more experience.
Yeah. And what happens is once you see something that you saw before, it's much easier to adapt. Right.
Of course,
so, you know, I tell this to everyone. If they two are fighting, like let's say you just started,
right.
Your punch and my punch will be pretty similar. You know what I mean? You only have 2 arms and 2 legs. Yeah. You only punch so many ways and kick so many ways. So the real difference between a really good fighter and an intermediate fighter is when and how to throw it. So, you know, if you can time it, if you can see the thing happening in the fight, control the range, control the timing, that's when you're winning, you know, because the technique by itself, it's pretty intuitive. And I feel like that's one of the things that made jiu-jitsu so popular is that it's very not intuitive.
Yeah.
You know, oh, that's crazy. You know, you put your foot there, what? You know, so it's not very intuitive. So it's a little harder to learn. Where kickboxing, Muay Thai, you learn the technique and you can get the technique pretty good. But if you don't do it at the right time, it's pointless.
And you're only going to get those looks. You're only going to get that understanding, that experience through fighting or through sparring.
Yeah.
So how often would you spar preparing for the tournament?
Yeah, so I was sparring 3 days a week.
3 days a week?
On purpose for that, you know.
That's a fair amount of sparring. Is that all hard sparring, light sparring?
No, so it was tech sparring, so technical sparring on Mondays. That's lighter sparring. It gives you a chance to try things without having to worry about getting knocked out. Tuesday I was sparring with elevation, so it was harder, but it was also longer rounds.
Okay, because they're preparing for 5-minute rounds?
Yeah, which helped me too. It made me have to gauge my intensity depending on the fight amount, right?
And more time to make adjustments, maybe?
Yeah, right? Because you have more time to feint, to try to draw reactions, because that's a big part of our game at Easton, is fight smart and try to get to the path of least resistance. I don't need to break his shell by just pounding on it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make him open his shell for me. You know what I mean? At least that's how I try to do it. And then Saturday we did with the Easton Muay Thai team, the hard sparring, either in Boulder or Denver. And it's always like we are really good at keeping it under control, but it was harder. So the 2 minutes, you had to push the pace a little more. So that really helped me as well. So it was different sparring sessions, but they were all different.
Yeah. And are you sparring 3 times a week outside of fight camp? Or was that specific for this tournament?
That was specific for the tournament. I don't, because of work and stuff, so elevation, they train in the middle of the afternoon. It's like 1 p.m.
Yeah.
So I was tough. Yeah, I coordinated to be able to do it during the camp, but it's not something that I can make it,
because you have to balance your day job.
Yeah. Gotta pay the bills.
Yeah, that's right. Does your day job give you health insurance?
Yes.
Good. So that's definitely good for the situation that you were speaking to earlier. And
tell me about it, man. I don't know what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, it is wild. A lot of MMA fighters are in a tough spot when it comes to health insurance. If they want to focus on their career and, make it to the highest level, it's almost a full-time job. But then they're, also raising the likelihood of injury. It's a tough spot.
And a lot of promotions require you to have health insurance too.
Really?
Yeah. Which is a little bit unfair, I guess, because a lot of fighters, a lot of them are either in service industry because the time is flexible,
right,
or construction because the time is flexible, or they work for themselves. They have to, being a fighter is tough, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tough.
What is your day job?
I work for Glory Kickboxing.
Very cool. What do you do for them?
So I'm the fighter operation coordinator, which is just a fancy way to say fighter babysitter. And there's only one job I can think of that will be better than that, but it's one hell of a good job.
Yeah.
So next week we're going to Orlando. We have Glory 67 Orlando, July 5th.
Yeah, 3 Colorado fighters on that card.
Yep. One of them beat the shit out of me just a few weeks ago.
Who was that?
LT.
Okay, LT Smash.
LT is killer. He's going to have a great fight.
Yeah.
Justin Houghton is fighting Elvis Gashi.
Oh, that's who he's fighting.
Yeah.
Oof, that's a great fight. That's a firefight, huh?
Yeah. And it's crazy that Justin can cut that much weight.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Yeah, because I remember seeing him during Fight Week for Glory, and I'm like, man, you cut a lot of weight. And then I saw him after. I was like, damn, you're much bigger than I remember.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is a big cut.
That'll be good for him, though, in that fight. Gashi's not the biggest guy.
Yeah.
So, good.
Yeah. And then Hassan is fighting Asa.
Yeah, it's a tough fight, too.
It's going to be a good fight. And now we got bumped up to co-main event. Yeah.
So that's great. Great exposure for the Colorado Muay Thai kickboxing scene. Because those guys, I mean, LT Smash, he does MMA, but Hussam, he's got a Muay Thai background, right? He's competed Muay Thai.
Yeah. So he fought for Glory twice.
Nice.
Hussam, New York, in Denver. He won one, he lost one, and now he's fighting again. And I'm expecting it to be a good fight.
Yeah.
And this card has a ton of really good talent.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's a fire card.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. Anvar is fighting for the title against Petch.
That's a good matchup. He knows that Thai style. He trains at Tiger Muay Thai full time. Anvar does, and so that, I mean, it's kickboxing rules, but he understands that Muay Thai look.
Yeah,
he's fought Sanchai in the past.
Yeah, and he has the same hundreds amount of fights that Petch has. Petch has 170 some fights. And Anvar has 100 and a bunch as well. Yeah. I don't know. After 100, I guess it doesn't matter counting anymore. Sure. So, yeah, it's going to be a good fight. And we have two top contenders on the featherweight, too, fighting on the Glory Fight Series. So there's the card before. Serhii Adamchuk fighting from Mike's gym.
Yep. Dutch style.
Yeah. And he's fighting Kevin Van Estran, who used to be the featherweight champion. So that's going to be a good fight, too. I'm excited.
Yeah. That's another guy that's pretty big, Kevin Van Estran. He's a big guy for that weight class. He uses those knees up the middle real well because he's tall and can get it through the guard.
Yeah, and he just had a pretty good win against Masara Gundler.
That's right, yeah. Gundler really couldn't get off in that fight because he was doing such a good job with the range.
Yeah, but Kevin got knocked down second round.
Yeah.
So it was a tough fight, and it was a good fight.
I like Glunder, man. He's a young guy that's got a lot of talent, a lot of skill.
Yeah, and also fighting for Mike's gym.
Everyone fights for Mike's gym, right? I mean, let's see him.
That place is scary.
Bad News, Christian Baya.
Yep. Badr Hari's fighting from there.
Badr Hari, they just
I don't want to be
him.
Saying a bunch of names and then I say a wrong one, but those are the ones I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much talent in the Netherlands in general. Then you got the Coliseum and...
Oh, the Coliseum. Yeah, Jafar Wilnes from the Coliseum is coming. He's fighting too.
Oh,
he's fighting D'Angelo Marshall.
Oh, okay. So power punchers. That'll be cool.
Yeah, that fight was supposed to have happened before. I'm excited that this time it worked out. A lot of people don't know what comes on behind the scenes when it comes to putting a fight together.
Sure.
And that's literally what I do. Like, I don't make the fights, but...
make it happen.
Yeah, dealing with the commission, visas, flights... medicals, languages, it's so difficult.
How easy is it to get a visa in another country to fight?
Lately it has been difficult.
Really?
Because the U.S. is
new laws.
It's been harder, we got a lot of people who got denied. A lot of coaches mostly. But fighters, all of them got their visas.
It's like a work visa? Is that what they use?
It's a P1, whatever that is. I think there's a specific visa for athletic or competitions and whatnot.
Who has to pay that? Is that the fighter or is it negotiated?
I have no idea. That's the part where I'm like, I'd rather not even know.
Yeah.
Because I know who gets it for them is our legal team.
Yeah.
Who pays for it? I have no idea.
Sure.
It's a good question.
So, like you mentioned, these guys have 100-plus fights. Some of them, right? I mean, Asa 10 Pow, I think he's at like 7 fights. El Khosry's at 4 fights overall as a pro. So, I mean, you're an A-class fighter. Essentially, you compete against guys potentially in an A-class tournament that are also competing as professionals. Mm-hmm. So, do you envision going pro in Muay Thai, or kickboxing? Or? No.
No. So this is the thing. I was talking to the guy. So the guy I beat on the finals for TBAs, he asked me the same question you asked me. Like, why did you go to A class? You could have done B class.
Mm-hmm.
And he also had only 12 fights. So he could also have been B class. And he was like, yeah, I just want to focus on my career. So I just wanted to get this last hoorah. and I really wanted a A-class belt, so he went up.
His career outside of fighting.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
And to me, it gets to a point in your experience level that you don't want to move back, right? So I don't want to, now that I won the A-class belt, whatever that means, right? But I don't want to be fighting people who are B-class.
Yeah.
Not because I know I'm going to win, but I feel like it's the challenge.
There's no need to take steps backward. Yeah, I agree.
But at the same time, it's not something that I'm not willing to put the same amount of effort to like go to Thailand and train for 3 months and then come back and as it would require for me to become a pro.
It'd be another level of commitment, another level of immersion, for sure.
Exactly. And you just have to choose, it comes a point in your life you have to choose where you want to be great at, you know. And I have some other things going on outside of fighting that have been my passion ever since ever.
Like what? What hobbies do you have outside of fighting?
So my music thing is huge. I'm trying to get this songwriting job. That's my ultimate life goal, is be a songwriter. And
that's awesome.
It was harder in Brazil because, they don't listen to blues and rock.
Sure.
They listen to whatever we listen to in Brazil. So when I came here, I was like, oh, that's a second win, So I just did this Colorado Award competition for solo artists. I made it to the finals, which is in September.
Wow.
So we're going to have another show.
Congratulations and good luck.
Thank you. But it's a different mentality, right? Because there is no competition in music. Music is about other people seeing themselves in you. Where fighting is very black and white. You win or you lose. Mm-hmm. And a win is a win, Whoever comes here and be like, hey, I won an A-class belt 2 years ago. You're not going to be like, who did you fight?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, you won. Cool.
Yeah.
That's another reason why the belt itself to me didn't really mean anything. Because maybe the bracket, anything that could have happened with the bracket, maybe I wouldn't have won. You know what I mean? So you were mentioning the guys who had 20 plus fights. They fought each other in the first round.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough matchup.
I'm saying that. I think I could have beat both of them.
Sure.
But maybe not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Maybe yes, maybe not. And you can't tell because that's how the cards played out.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a very different mentality. And I am competitive, but I'm not that competitive. Like when people are like, I'm better than you at that. It's like, okay.
Maybe.
There's only one way to find out, Yeah. And either we're going to find out or we're not going to find out.
I agree, yeah.
So it's kind of that game. So I don't think I'm not going to fight anymore. Like especially now the Colorado rules changed.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to fight again. Maybe even do TBAs against next year. Maybe USMTO.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to go pro.
Now it's more of a challenge for. I guess it's always the challenge is on you, right?
Yeah.
You are fighting another person, but I think a lot of people that have fighting experience would agree that it's more you're challenging yourself. You're fighting yourself. You get in the ring at least at this level to test where you are, to understand where if I can put it together when I'm under pressure, if I can get past this mental block or this insecurity or these doubts. And like you're saying, even right before the fight, you're thinking these things. What am I doing? Why am I here? Why did I do this to myself? But the only thing you can do is move forward. So, it helps you in life. That's your journey. And it's just this, micro level event that can also be expanded macro-wise. You can expand that moment out to life and say, you're always going to come into these situations where you feel uncomfortable. You have doubt or second thoughts and just got to push forward.
And that's the thing, like, especially for me, because I don't really plan on being a pro. But then again, I never plan on being a national champion either.
Sure. It just happens.
Kind of just do it.
You're on this journey.
If you're not planning on doing it for money, then you have to be doing it for something, And to me, is always the correlation between fighting and being so primal and so black and white with the things that you can put it towards your life, right? So the simple things as you train for something, you train a technique, and then you get to apply it in a fight when there's pressure. That's a life skill. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You train whatever it is,
Public speaking.
You guys learned how to do podcasts and all this stuff. And now, you guys put it together and now people are watching. That, to me, that's massive. I am a huge fan of people learning something, getting good at something, and sharing it with other people.
Yeah.
That, to me, is inspiring, And now we have so many more outlets to share. And people, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And I wish they would,
Yeah.
It's never stupid. It's always cool. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm really good at crochet. Good. Show it,
Yeah.
Do it. So that's kind of where I was at with the whole fighting situation, If I can learn these life skills and take it and become a better person, that's really all I care about.
Yeah, get over that hump too. I mean, I love that parallel that you just put out there, but another one that popped to my mind is, that idea that you just worked 6 weeks for this moment, and now all of a sudden your mind's like, don't do it, we don't have to do it. But you still have to say, I put in the work, I committed myself. I'm going to follow through with this commitment because that's just what I do. That's what you do. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I think that it expands to everybody, extends to everybody.
It's definitely something that everybody should experience. Get into a fist fight with somebody who trained for it, right? Not just go to a bar and just get in a fight.
Right.
You don't have any. When a fight just happens in the street, you don't have the anticipation. Sometimes it might be even easier. I never really got into a street fight.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Here that other guy trained to fuck you up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you trained too. And now you have to see who can apply better. Maybe the other guy is better than you, but you can apply what you did better, then you win.
Right.
Maybe the guy is better than you technically, but you have more composure or whatever. And those are untangible skills that you have to learn during your process of training your punches and your kicks or whatever. You know? So it's a mental game that it's big for the coaches to understand because I have that self-awareness, but some people don't,
Of course. Yeah.
And the coaches have to be like, hey, look, don't overthink or don't do this or do that or whatever,
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just get that experience. Yep. So you speak to this idea that your weightlifting, your skills-based training, your sparring as well. Are you working on anything like specific in your game at this point in your career, or is it you just feel like you're constantly trying to progress overall? What is that? What are you thinking when you go to practice each day?
Yeah, so the way I think about it is always like, what technique am I, either not doing right, or not doing right, but like I haven't succeeded. So for instance, this camp, I really wanted to land a body shot, like hooks, right? Mm-hmm. I saw a lot of fights. I've been seeing a lot of fights where it's working, and it's been really helping me set up some strong, like my head kick is one of my strong strikes, and changing levels between head and body with the punches have been opening up the head kicks a lot. So I was really practicing the body kick. So I went to the bag, and I just threw it 1,000 times. Every bag round, I would do a whole round of just that one punch. And then I would try to apply it. And then, oh, cool, I feel like it's been landing. Let's look something else, right? So for instance, this whole weekend, I didn't throw any switch kicks.
Wow.
So that's next on my list. Wow,
so just power kicks? Rear leg kicks?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I don't even know why. It's just not something that I've always wanted, I've always threw. I've always felt like when I started, like a few years into it, I've always felt it was very easy to see, so I would just never throw it.
Switch kick. Yeah. Or the power kick.
The switch kick.
Got it.
Because you switch first, right?
Yeah.
So that takes time, and then some people usually pick up on it and strike back right away. But the problem is not the kick. The problem is that my switch was too slow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So once I started fixing my switch, I was like, oh, cool. Maybe I can land that more often and be more efficient with it. So now that's next, right? Mm-hmm. Something that lands on me all the time is teeps. People teep me all the time. Don't try it.
Yeah.
All the time.
It's a frustrating move.
Yeah. So what I was trying to do is that I really focused on defending it. So the marches, the feints, angles. The last fight, you watched it. The first round, the guy literally went like this on the ropes,
right,
and he lifted his knee. He was ready to teep me if I walked forward. And then I just cut an angle. I wasn't in front of him anymore, so he couldn't throw any straight strikes, and then I struck from there. So I focused on not getting teeped.
Yeah.
So you just have to do the sparring and pay attention, You have to pay attention to the things that are working against you and the things that you are doing that are not working against the other person. And then you have to do it again against another person because maybe it didn't work on them, but it's going to work on the other person.
Sure.
So maybe it's not that you suck. Maybe they're just really good at defending that or whatever, And then you make an average and then you practice it, That's kind of how I vision it.
Yeah. What's kind of wild to me, though, is that you're talking about you're recognizing these things in practice, but you were actually working on this during the fight, too. I mean, you're saying in this tournament, this A-class tournament, high-level fighters, I'm going to work on something specific, and I'm not going to actually throw something else. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I worked on it before the fight, and during the fight, you're really not going to learn anything.
Sure.
And you don't really want to throw stuff that you're not extremely confident.
Yeah.
But you have to still do the reads, Like Marco Ruas, remember him?
Yeah.
He, back in the day when MMA was starting, he was the first guy who started the whole actual mixed martial artist thing back when it was style against style.
Shogun's brother, right?
No, that's Murilo Ninja.
Oh, okay.
Marco Ruas, he was a UFC champion. He used to brutalize people. He's the guy who taught, I think he was Pedro Rizzo's professor.
Really? Wow.
He's old school.
Got it.
Old
Okay.
School. And he was like, if you try to strike with me, I'm going to take you down. If you try to take me down, I'm going to strike you.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of the same, If the person is throwing wild punches, I'm going to try to teep. Mm-hmm. I don't like teeping. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm great at it, but I'm still going to throw it because I'm not terrible at it either. We're all training to be good, somewhat good at everything.
Right.
But obviously, is what we talked about. At some point, you're going to develop things that are stronger than others.
Yeah.
It never goes together.
Sure.
So you want to set up the fight so you can set up your strong weapons, but you can't neglect other things, and you sometimes just have to do that read in the fight.
Right. Something's open there that maybe you haven't been training, but it's what's open.
Yeah. And I just got lucky that the defense to the teep kind of started clicking on this camp, where before I was doing it and it wasn't always working. It was working sometimes and it wasn't working sometimes. And Sean, the head coach for us for Easton Muay Thai, he has really strong teeps.
Yeah.
So I was having a hard time getting into his range, even though I'm taller than him, and eventually started clicking, and then right on time for the fight. So it worked out good.
That's really cool. I mean, I think it's another thing that perhaps people that aren't in that martial arts journey or in that Muay Thai journey don't necessarily see, but it's kind of like a series of epiphanies, a series of revelations that you get when you're training, when you're on this journey, whether it be in Jiu-Jitsu, whether it be in Muay Thai, where you're like, oh, that's how you move your body. Oh, that's how you do this.
It's all those light bulbs. And you have to make such impactful decisions in such small moments, right? Like, everything it's happening really fast. And when you have only 2 minutes, which is the normal Muay Thai amateur fight, 2 minutes you have to do a lot in very little time, right? So things are happening very quick, and then you get stuck sometimes into that tunnel vision where you're not really thinking about the consequences of your actions. So for instance, the guy, I had a first round head kick KO on my first fight. It wasn't that I just, invented head kicks then. I saw that he was dropping his hand every jab. So he would throw the jab and he would drop a little bit, just this much. And I knew that if I kick his head, I would land it. I didn't know it was going to knock him out, but it was going to land. So on the fight, I threw a jab cross. He kind of defended the jab and kind of slipped across, kind of like this. But I saw his head moving towards the kick. So now, right after, instead of the jab cross, he threw the jab kick, where he threw his head on the direction where my kick's coming from.
Right.
But
you have to be comfortable. I mean, you have to be comfortable and present to be able to see that, make that adjustment.
Exactly, right? So it's the really good fighters, there's a difference between reacting during the fight and setting up the things that you're good at.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to be good at both. But the more you can set up, the less you have to react. And react is way more volatile.
Yep.
Because you don't really, if you're reacting, you're a step behind.
Yeah.
If you're setting up, you're a step ahead.
Right. You're dictating the fight as opposed to reacting, like you said.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it really is impressive when you see the high-level people, how chill they are in the fight.
Yeah.
Almost sometimes to their detriment, like they won't go, but it's impressive to me, maybe because I struggle to be so chill in that type of situation, but you can see with the guys that just have more experience, it's super beneficial being able to you see a lot more. Instead of getting that tunnel vision, you're able to see, maybe the difference between sparring and a fight for people that are younger in their careers. Sparring, they're able to see, they're not getting that tunnel vision as much, but then in that fight, it's all tunnel vision and they're just reacting and brawling.
It happens to all of us.
Sure.
It's like being underwater.
Yeah.
But to me, it's always like this. I've always wanted, I used to watch, the K1 fights and stuff, and I would see the heavyweights, and I would look at their face, like Alistar or Fedor or Badahari, Mark Hunt. They would just before the fight starts, they're just like,
yes.
I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I never liked when people are like, yeah. It's like, that's such lame antics.
I feel like you're also using a lot of energy, using a lot of energy being like that.
What they're trying to do, most likely, considering that they're not just being douches,
sure,
is that they're trying to ease up on their nerves, or they're just trying to keep their body warm or whatever. But I just thought it was so cool that the biggest ones, and they're, when you're the heavyweight champion, in theory, you're the best, right?
Sure,
because you're good and you're heavier.
Baddest man in the world.
Right, exactly, right? So if they're that chill, I want to be like that too, So I was like, So Bas Rutten I was always a huge fan, They were so chill, and I thought it was so cool. But you're right, sometimes it can work against you and you don't go,
Yeah, like Tyron Woodley is the example that jumps to my mind recently, where he just seems like, his face he's getting beat, but his face is just constantly he's sitting on a couch.
And it's funny because you never really know what's going on in their heads,
Yeah, it is.
Sometimes the mental game is weird because, the coaches can be like, oh, throw this, it's open, it's going to work. And you throw your once, and it doesn't work, and you give up on it.
Yeah. And
then 2 seconds later, you plan on throwing it again, but then you totally forget. You know what I mean? Like this first fight I had, the second fight on TBAs, I was obviously trying to land a head kick. I was throwing a few, and I couldn't find his range because it was way more weighted back instead of forward. So I kind of gave up, and I started doing more punches, more clinch. But then on the third round, when he started giving up on being careful because he was down 2 rounds, he started throwing these wild punches. And I could have come back to the kicks then because now he's giving it to me. But then I totally forgot about it, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, well, the clinch was working. I'm just going to keep doing that, you know? So it's the thing that we were talking about, adapting. If it's working, keep doing it. But it's a matter of, sometimes you don't do something because it's something in your head, not even because you're freaked out or this or because whatever,
Yeah.
People who are watching can have all sorts of theory.
Sure. And you never really know. You don't know what's going on through their head.
Exactly.
So you were picking up the strength and conditioning because you didn't really have to cut too much weight, it sounds like. What does that look like? I mean, what is strength and conditioning for you?
To me, it was always circuit training. So I would do, sometimes I would vary. I never thought 2 minutes is ideal, but I was doing at least 3. So 3 to 5 minutes rounds. And I would do, one thing that I did a lot was to do 3 to 5 rounds of 3 minutes of stations, right? So I would go from one to the other, and I would just get creative, whatever it is, right?
Is this kettlebells or barbells?
It could be kettlebells, barbells, deadlifts, cleans, jerks, shrugs, military press.
The more core functional lifts.
Always focusing on compound movements.
And are these lightweight or are they heavyweight?
Light.
Okay.
Yeah, because heavyweight fast at a high pace, it can really hurt you. And that's how CrossFit athletes are always hurt, They're really heavy lifting, but they have to do it fast, and that's not very good.
Okay.
So because I was doing conditioning, when I was focusing on conditioning, sometimes I would focus on strength. Then I would just do just a few exercises, so bench press or deadlifts or whatever, and then I would do heavier, but I wouldn't do it in a hurry.
Okay.
Right? So I would do 3 or 4 sets, and then I would do the conditioning, and that would take 15, 20 minutes.
Nice.
And
so you're in and out.
Yeah, but then I would do, after that, 6 to 12 rounds on the bag.
Okay. So you're doing the strength and conditioning before the bag work, so that way you're tired, your muscles feel used, more realistic at least.
Yeah.
So, a fight where your body's going to feel tense and heavy.
Yeah. And to me, the whole camp was about confidence, about being able to know that I could still win and still fight with good technique and do the things after I'm tired. Because I was like, I'm going to get tired anyways.
Of course.
Fuck it, but I still have to be dangerous, you know.
Right. Have that clean technique when you're tired. Be able to
Exactly.
push it when you're tired. Interesting.
And be able to be a threat, right?
Yes.
Because I didn't want to go there just to participate, you know. I didn't want to. I know that if I'm tired, my technique is good enough that I'm not gonna get knocked out.
Yeah.
Or maybe I will, but probably not, right? But it's not enough. You have to win. So it's a different mentality when you're just trying to get through it, and when you're trying to win.
So generally, low weight, high volume, and intervals.
Yes.
Okay. And because the idea is that you'll be able to do this consistently over the 2-minute rounds and then recover in between.
Exactly.
I like it. Very sports specific.
Yeah, and who helped me a lot with this a few years ago, I did a lot of strength conditioning with Melissa Myers.
Yeah.
She's a brown belt at Easton. She trains out of high altitude martial arts, the Easton in Aurora. And she was doing that. So I at the time, I was like, I'm going to do MMA one day, da-da-da. I was young and stupid. And then she was like, all right, cool. And that's how she did it. She would do so many rounds of 5 minutes, and then she would do different circuits. Sometimes they would last 1 minute, so do this for 1 minute, then go for this one. Sometimes it will be in repetition, and you just keep doing it until the round is over. And you would change it, and changing is very important because then you don't get used to just one motion and one pace.
Right.
So that kind of set my mind into being able to set up my own circuits.
Yeah.
And it really helps. So thanks, Melissa.
It's a lot. I mean, it's an intense camp that you're going through, sparring 3 times a week, pro MMA guys, hard days on Saturdays, getting all these different looks across the really 3 different gym options. There are 3 different groups of fighters. You're focused on your diet. You're working out in these hard interval settings and pushing yourself with these weights. So what is recovery?
That's something I should probably do more often. I feel sometimes I'm like Rocky IV.
Yeah.
You know, that you just go to the mountains and you just lift logs of wood and stuff. I see people doing all the cryogenic thing and then they have the massage boots. And I'm like, I'm broke, dude.
I know. That's where it comes in for me. I just don't have the money to afford this stuff.
I got that, you know. So my recovery was always like what I did. So one time my legs were just shot, and then I did the Epsom salt bath. That really helped. Thai oil.
So basics, but you are focusing on a recovery aspect. I mean, you need it.
Yeah, you need it. Yeah, you need it. But my recovery aspect was really crude.
Sure.
You know.
And how are you finding them? I mean, is that just word of mouth that people told you this works? Or are you Googling it?
I ask. So I always go like Sean has a lot of experience with just seeing other people doing it and him doing it himself.
Right.
Steve, you know, I've done it before. Epsom salt. My grandmother used to be like, "That's gonna be better for your muscles."
Yeah.
And yeah, it is. It relaxes and it really helped. But I feel like also a big part of recovery is knowing when to train.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, as a fighter, you're always thinking, I got to push more. Sometimes you have to tone it down a bit, right? And I was having that conversation with Chris Lockhart on the last sparring session we had before TBAs. He was like, yeah, this week, I like the last week, I didn't spar 3 times. I sparred 2.
Mm-hmm.
I was starting to wind down, and it became more specific to the fight instead of conditioning or technique or whatever, because you're not really going to get better in the last week, you know? It's about keeping your mind confident and about making it as specific to what you're actually going to compete in as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that last week really helped me because I trained less. I had a show, so I missed 1 training session.
Oh, wow. You're still performing while you're doing this.
Yeah, dude. That surgery was freaking me out. So I was like, I'm cramping everything into this month.
Yeah.
Like this month, July, before the surgery, I'm going to Orlando next week. Then I'm going on vacation to New York. Then I have another show on the 19th. And then my mom is getting here.
That's sick.
I just cramped up because I don't know. My life is on hold after the surgery because I don't know what's going to happen.
But this month will be full of experiences and accomplishments.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that's something that always helped me with my nerves when it came to fighting is knowing that there's tomorrow.
Yeah. And
you have shit to do tomorrow, you know? So, like, I got out of the fight and I had to deal with stuff for glory, you know? And that's what it was like, oh, yeah, that fight did happen, didn't it? Because you're doing other things.
Yeah. You're a different person the next day.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Life keeps going, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you, recovery-wise, you kind of go with these traditional techniques more than these new age techniques that maybe cost money or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I've never done
Of course,
you know,
of course.
but yeah.
There's a cost associated. You have to
Yeah.
sacrifice something. If you're going to do that, you're sacrificing money,
Yeah.
or you can sacrifice the new tech for the more traditional ways and save money.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we were talking about when it comes to becoming a pro
Mhm.
and how much time you want to put into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If anyone is to be a pro, first thing they need is a nutritionist.
Yep.
That you have to pay for it, and it's like a gym membership. You have to have it, right? So a nutritionist, you know, a recovering agenda or
Whatever it is,
you know,
whatever you like,
you have to, because the amount of training and effort and intensity is different, you know, and you just have to know how far you want to go. My goal was always to be top in the nation as an amateur.
Cool.
I've always wanted a national belt and feel like, you know, I can still spar with pros and feel like I'm not getting totally destroyed. You know, there's always going to be people who are going to destroy you, right? But I still want to feel like I gave them a workout or whatever, you know, that I'm just a bum, you know? And that's always what I wanted to be at. Yeah. And the reason why I don't want to go any further is because of this little added costs, not just in money, but in time and effort and stuff that I don't necessarily feel as passionate about to be able to do that, you know? And it's, you know, some people are like, you know, there's this kid at the gym, he's like, I want to fight. And then Sean was like, why don't you fight? Oh, because I don't train enough. Well, so do you really want to fight? How bad do you want it? Yeah. And if you don't want it, that's cool. But if you do want it, then you have to do it, you know?
I completely agree. I mean, I think a team is absolutely necessary. I think that's what you see at the highest level. The people that are most successful have a manager that cares about them. They have a recovery person that's very close to them and understands their body. They have a coach that understands their style and what they need to improve on and where, you know, they're strong and can help them with that. You do see this very well-built team around the individuals that are the best. Even Anthony Joshua, who just recently lost in that upset, I mean, they showed a picture of his team. It's like 15, 20 people deep, you know? All these people are specialists, whether it's a chef, nutritionist, you know, masseuse, whatever it is. These people are building these teams around them. They're essentially a business in and of themselves once they're a professional athlete.
As simple as hand wrapping.
Yeah.
You know, they talk about Floyd Mayweather paying like a crazy amount for a guy to wrap his hands. And that's kind of the thing, you know? There's all these other things. And like, you know, when it gets to this higher level, Chael Sonnen was talking about sports psychology.
Yes.
And like
that's another big one.
Therapists that are specific for sports performance and mentality or whatever. That's another little, and those little things are all things that people think that they're taking an edge on the other person.
And they probably are.
And they probably are, yeah. But when it comes down to the fight, none of it matters.
Right.
You know, it's about how you feel.
Yeah.
Like Mike Tyson was like, he used to say, "Oh, I wake up 4 a.m. to run because I knew my opponent was asleep, and that made me feel like I got an edge."
Confidence.
And that confidence is what it is.
Yep.
You know, maybe the other guy even have better cardio than him, and that run at 4 a.m. really didn't make a difference on his conditioning, but it makes a difference on your spirit. You know, and to me that was a big part of the diet. Like I didn't have to diet as much as I did, but just saying no to something because of something I wanted, to me, it made a big difference on my attitude.
Yeah.
Now this thing is more important because I'm paying a price to get to it, you know?
And you're practicing discipline day in and day out every time you're making a decision on what to eat.
Yeah. And that's true freedom, you know? In life, to me, freedom of self is ultimately being able to say yes and be able to say no because you want it, you know? Not because somebody's telling me to or because somebody fucking pressured me. There's no way you can pressure me into doing something that I don't want to do because you practice this ability of saying no to things you want.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes saying yes to things you don't want, you know?
Yeah.
I don't want to fight. Fuck it. Fight, win. And you have to get through it, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
It's the strength, you know?
Absolutely. So you lift, for recovery, you're doing the Epsom salt baths. What about stretching? I mean, you're talking about how you're able to kick people in the head. Do you do any stretching, or do you find that mobility just comes from going through the motions in Muay Thai?
I do a lot of stretching. Yeah. So in Brazil, when I started in 2018, I started at a Kung Fu school. But it wasn't like it wasn't a traditional Kung Fu like here. it's a Sanshou school.
Okay.
So it's it's Chinese boxing, and Chinese boxing is very similar to sambo. It's a very strike heavy, and they allow takedowns, throws and takedowns. And the idea behind Sanshou, if you guys never saw it, is actually really cool. It's to simulate old kung fu schools challenges. They have the Lei Tai platform, which in movies, I'm sure you've seen this in traditional kung fu movies like Jet Li and stuff, is like a raised up platform that was circular that you fight, and whoever comes out of the platform falls and die, right? Yeah. So it's very similar to sumo, where you have to get people out of the circle. So in Sanshou, you can score by taking them out of the whatever area, takedowns and strikes, right?
Okay.
And for the traditional part, stretching was huge. And back when I was in school, I didn't have shit to do. So we would train for 3 hours straight.
Cool.
So the first half an hour, 40 minutes was only stretching.
Wow. So that's intense.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I remember the light bulbs, right, where I was like, oh, fuck, I couldn't hit this high. Now I'm hitting this high.
It's nice.
And the mentality was always that if I can kick somebody in the head really hard, then I can definitely kick you really hard in the body.
We share that sentiment, I think.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So that helped.
So do you stretch? I mean, clearly you built this foundation of the importance of stretching kind of just in your martial arts approach.
Right.
So do you do that throughout the day? Are you setting 1 hour aside? Is this before practice, after practice, at night while you're watching TV? When do you stretch?
Yeah, so that's another thing that experience kind of builds up. You can kind of do it anytime, but I feel like it's better after training.
Okay.
Because it gets your body to wind down, right? Because to me, there's a spiritual effort into fighting. Mental, like you're not just there. You know, people who are high-level fighters, and I'm not talking about me, but like everybody who's been in high-level fights, and they found that challenger that was like really, they talk about this presence and this attitude. So people like Alistair, when I saw him at the gym, I was like, fuck, there's just something about it, right? Yeah. So there is a spiritual aspect that sometimes people kind of overlook that I try to keep in my mind when I'm training. So after you're done training, you have to kind of wind down and become a normal person again, because you can't just go on the street and be like, I'll fuck you up, you know?
Yeah.
You have to go back to being a normal person that has like cordial and stuff. But when you're training, you're trained to kill someone, right? So it's different attitude. So as I'm stretching, you know, one obviously helps my stretch itself, but it kind of helps me wind down from that battle mentality to like, I'm a normal person.
Huh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I like to do it after. Obviously, your body is a little more warmed up, so you can actually push yourself a little more. And I only do active stretching, so I don't do passive stretching where you're not actually pushing your joints to go past their limit. So it feels just as much as a workout as it is the workout itself. So it's almost like a cool off too.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
It helps. Yeah.
I like that idea of how you kind of approach the stretching. I know when I was in Thailand at Revolution Muay Thai, it is now, they had a strength and conditioning guy there, and that's what he was big about. He was talking to one of their premier fighters at the time, or still, Chad Collins, and he was saying how, look, like, stretching before practice, after practice, sure, do it if you want to, but that's not what I'm recommending. I'm recommending you put your phone away, you don't look at a screen, don't look at a computer, it's 9 o'clock at night, you're about ready for bed. That's when you stretch, when you're super chilled out and you can focus on actually hitting those range of motions, not with a million things going through your head, with Instagram notifications going off, with text messages. That's not a good way to stretch, not before you're about to get into sparring and you're a little tense, not afterward when you're thinking about sparring still and you're still hyped up. He wants you to be completely in this chill zone and focus on the stretching for what it is, a mental focus, a workout in and of itself.
Very good point. Yeah. Especially because, stretching, it requires a level of attention that you can't really do it on a hurry, right? Because then you're not really going to get better.
Yeah.
You have to put the time. And that's another thing, to me, as we were talking about fighting, training, it's all about becoming a better person. And to me, a better person is a person who is focusing on acquiring skills, right? And another skill to me that is very important, is being able to focus on whatever the fuck you're doing, right?
It's a hard one, but
It's
good
hard.
skill to have.
It's really hard. And I'm not saying I'm good at it,
Sure.
you know, but I try, you know.
Yeah.
And this is one example. Like stretching, a lot of people overlook it already, right? Because it's not making you a better fighter, whatever.
Sure.
But if you're not paying attention, you can pull something and it hurts, you know, and then you're in that kind of injury, it keeps you out for a little bit.
Yeah,
you know?
Now you're not getting better.
Right, exactly. So be focused, feel where you are, you know, and I tell this to my students a lot, especially with shadow boxing. It's not just throwing your hands forward, you know, feel where your weight is, feel where your movement throws your body towards, right? When you hit the bag is going to push you back. Where are you going? Where's your weight? Because that's the only way you can fix it. You can only fix things that you recognize.
Yes. Yeah, man, you're crushing it. I think there's this book called Talent is Overrated that I read once, and it really...
Talent is overrated?
Talent is Overrated. It really resonated with me because it was talking about how any idea of a prodigy is false, is his argument. This idea that some kid is born great at singing, like a Justin Bieber. No, what happened is he was young, he sang in the car, and instead of his parents saying, yo, shut up, we don't want to hear you, they said, keep singing, and hey, maybe try this. Hey, maybe, you know, it sounds like you're missing that note there, try this. And it's not just continuing to do it, not just banging your head into a wall, but doing it, stepping back, saying, okay, what did I do well? What did I not do well? And then taking feedback and then implementing it into those reps. So not just doing the reps, but getting the feedback, being self-aware, like it sounds like you do a good job of, and making those necessary changes to improve. Absolutely. And then get the 10,000 hours in.
Yeah, exactly. Sean says something that I think also resonated with me. I don't care how fast and how hard you do it wrong. You know,
that's beautiful. Yeah, that's great.
You have to
do
it right first, and then you know. And to me, you know, I love reading philosophy and stuff. And Socrates, he was a huge adept on the fact that, you know, a person who just has the physical attributes, it's a savage and it's a pointless person to have around. But a person who only focuses on the thinking is never going to be ready to truly be everything they can be. So the perfect citizen for, you know, the republic or whatever is the warrior philosopher, right? The philosopher king.
Wow.
So a person who can also be is an educated person, but also can be push its body to what it's supposed to do. You know,
reach the potential. Potential.
So you have to be smart about everything you do. If you do things and you're not thinking about it, you're not really experiencing it.
Yeah.
And I think about, you know, this is philosophical, not literally about death, but like philosophically about death. You know, what's the name? The fancy guy, Gary Gavi.
Oh,
what's it?
The social media guy.
Yes.
Vaynerchuk, Gary Vaynerchuk, something
like
that.
I forgot his name. He's the one who wrote Gary V. Yeah. He wrote that book, Crush It, and da-da-da. And then one time, like, somebody was like, can you give me an advice in one sentence? Or something motivational. Say something, the most motivating thing you can say in one sentence. And he was like, you're going to die. And it's true. Your time is limited, you know? And just going through life without experiencing it, if you're not thinking about something, not necessarily thinking like overthinking. If you're not thinking about what you've done, what about what's going on around you, first, that's going to develop like a victimist type of attitude where things happen to you.
Right.
And two, you're not really fully experiencing the things you can experience. And you're not really making the contribution that you could be making, you know? Because to me, it's like, we met, you know, you're making a contribution to my life. I'm making to yours,
Absolutely.
You know? This is pretty cool. I'm enjoying this experience a lot. And I wouldn't have been here if I didn't met you before, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, I wouldn't be here if you didn't meet me.
Yep.
So everybody you meet has a potential to make a contribution for you, and vice versa.
Right.
But if you're not present there and thinking about it and being there, you know, what a shitty life. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of what a...
Man, I mean, you spoke to it too, you know, like you're not perfect at it. I think that it's a challenge, right, to be that present. And I think one thing that helps me with it is yoga. You know, my job on a daily basis, I also am a wealth manager. So, I mean, this is essentially a big part of my job. Just talking to people, learning about their life, understanding what their true values are, their true goals are, and then how do we align these action items to actually achieve those values, achieve those goals.
Yeah.
for that on a monetary basis, but you're doing the same thing with your life. I mean, it's, maybe money's one thing you block out, but martial arts, you're doing it in that aspect, or your career, you're doing it in that aspect. So it's certainly something that we're all constantly working on and ideally getting better at.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, money's good,
Sure.
But to me, my philosophy in life is that money's secondary.
Yeah.
I'd rather get paid $30,000 an hour and do something I love than $100,000 an hour or $100,000 a year and do something I hate. Right?
That was the approach I took.
Yeah, right?
I agree.
And not only that, but like if you're truly good at something, you're always going to make money of it.
Yeah.
And you can't just be good at it. You have to add value to other people.
Right.
Because that's how you succeed, right?
Absolutely.
Bruce Lee, I probably dropped a few Bruce Lee quotes in this interview as it is, but life is not truly living if you're not living for others, And to me, that's massive, That's another reason why it was a little weird winning the belt because other teammates didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and well, you talked about it before this. This is the only reason I want to highlight it. But like the idea that they work just as hard, and I don't want to.
Harder.
So I don't want to say that for you, but I've been in that situation where I'm like, man, this person, they might have outworked me in the gym,
you can
and
say it.
I got the good outcome. They didn't, and that is a weird feeling. Like, was it just circumstance? Was it just luck? I kind of was in the right spot at the right time and got the right opponent.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. Life is all about circumstances you can't control and circumstances that you can.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have to be really good focusing on the things that you can control because the rest is kind of the rest.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have won, if I would have lost, if the bracket was any different.
Sure.
But when it came time that I faced things that I could have controlled, it kind of turned out well.
Right.
So, and maybe it wouldn't otherwise, maybe I didn't, if I hadn't focused on it.
Yeah.
It's just being able to be, and we were talking about, right? If I wasn't aware of the things I can control, if I'm just going through the motions and doing things, maybe I wouldn't have controlled them to the point where they were benefiting me, maybe I would have made a mistake.
Right.
And that's where mistakes come from, if you do something that you shouldn't do because you weren't paying attention or because you didn't prepare yourself for that moment to make a certain decision that was supposed to benefit you,
Yeah.
And to me, that's what we're talking about, man. Like when people find their passion, that's the win.
Yeah.
And once I started getting closer to, I'm 29. I'm going to be 30 this year.
Yes.
And I was like, man, I'm pretty good at fighting. I'm pretty good at songwriting. I'm pretty good at all these things. But what do I want to do for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
And sometimes I see people like you, people like Mario when she was working hard on the fight. Like when they find the thing that they love and I see their eyes, like I saw yours just now, I'm like, man, this is so fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is. Elliot, when he's teaching class, it doesn't look like he's teaching a class. It looks like he just got some friends together.
Yeah.
And now like, hey, let's just do this thing that I really love. You know what I mean? That's the win. That's the winning life.
Well, and that's when being present's not difficult, right?
Yeah.
That's that flow state people talk about, the idea that your talents and your desires and your time are all meeting together, and now you're in this flow state that maybe feels like 5 minutes, but 2 hours just passed.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Another thing that might be the reason why people don't pay as much attention to their surrounding is because they're running away from something, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Something in their life that they hate,
Yes.
Could be their job, could be their girlfriends, could be their fucking school.
They don't want to be present.
Yeah, they don't want to be present.
It's painful.
Yeah.
It's whatever. Yes.
But they're missing the opportunity of changing it,
Yeah.
changing that reality,
Yeah.
And it sucks because what you talked about with the parents, right? To me, that's the solution. If you're a parent and you find something that your kid is passionate about, and there's something else, like I'm not a huge Gary Vee fan per se, but he says some stuff but he says some stuff that I'm like, yeah, dude, if you find something you love, that's already challenging as fuck, right?
Yeah.
If you happen to also be good at it, it's your fucking duty in the world to go and do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So as a parent, if you see, I'm not a parent, but if I ever had kids, the first thing that I see that my kid's truly interested in, that's what you fucking do in it. And I'm not going to let you give up, because you got to foster these talents from early, and as we get closer to a point where machines are doing everything for us, we have to, one, find more meaning in our lives,
Right.
Two, we have to focus on the things that the machines can't do, which is feel and create and things like that. And there's a huge speech that, whatever the name of that, really the richest guy in China, the guy with the funny face, I forgot his name.
Jack Ma?
Yes. He talks about that, how the education system is not following the changes in technology. We're still trying to make everybody super technical and academic or whatever, when we should really be focusing on the arts and on creativity, because that's the definition of being human, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's always what I feel like I've strived for as an individual, to be able to be in a situation where I can be creative and try to better myself while bettering other people. Whereas sometimes you can get to this position, maybe in a career 8 years in, 5 years in, where you're like, oh, I'm just a cog in a machine that does the same thing over and over. And yeah, I'm doing something. I'm part of this bigger project, but is there meaning there? Am I really being creative, or am I just doing, could they plug a monkey in here? Could a warm body sit here and do exactly what I'm doing? You know, what am I bringing to the table that's different? What am I bringing to the table that is my perspective, my life experience, that would be different than anybody else, different than yours? You know, we're similar ages. I'm 28, you're 29. But if we were talking to another person that's not us, we would be having completely different conversations, because we have different life experiences. We've read different books. We've had different things said to us. We've, you know, had different struggles, and it all makes you who you are. And if you're, you know, if you have the ability to express that and be creative, I think there's a lot more value there than just reiterating something out of a textbook that we just all agreed upon is what we're going to say is the truth.
Exactly. And that to me is really the ultimate life experience, you know, is finding where you're good at, finding where you're passionate at, and then share with other people, because you never know who wants to do the same thing, you know? It happened to me 100 times where I'm like, I don't know if I'm good at this. I don't know if I can do this. And then somebody does it. I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, like I've always wanted to be a musician, but I had no idea what the fuck that meant, you know? I didn't know if it was like playing guitar for 1,000 people or 100,000 people, or just writing songs or just producing or this or that or whatever, right? And then, but I knew it was something around there. And then I see other people doing it, and then I see what is the actual concrete path that I have to take to get to where I want to go.
But you're also creating your own meaning at the same time.
Exactly, right? In the same way that I saw my path from the people that are in front of me, and then I get to now choose my own. Other people, so, you know, somebody came to me, oh man, you won that belt, and now I'm really excited. Now I'm really inspired. Now I really want to do it. You know, Wes won the belt. Wes Agro from Boulder. He won the belt a couple years ago, and I wanted to win this belt because he won a belt.
It inspires me. I'll tell you that.
Right. And then, you know, now I won. Now maybe somebody's going to look at the belt on the wall. Maybe I'm not even going to be at Easton anymore. 10 years from now, whatever. But the belt's going to be there. And people are like, oh man, that's cool. I want one of those.
Yeah.
You don't ever know. And it's so cool to help other people, even if you're not aware of it, that you're doing it, to help other people achieve something special.
Yeah.
That level. And I don't know, man. Like whoever looked at that, oh, maybe I want to be a TBA champion one day. And they win TBA, and then they go to becoming the fucking glory champion.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
You never really know.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, so you're at a place right now that your life's pretty dynamic. You know, this month, like you said, you've got a lot going on. You're a musician, you're a Muay Thai fighter, you're a coach, you work for Glory. So, I mean, how do you balance it all?
I'm just obsessed.
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. Well, first of all, you need to have priorities, right? So you're always going to give up one thing for another. So, you know, obviously I haven't been writing as many songs because I was really focused on training.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to have, one, you have to be realistic with yourself to knowing that you can follow through with whatever you promise yourself. You know, there's a really good book, by the way, Plato's Republic, that they talk about the morality of following through with what you promised yourself, and the 3 parts of your soul where if one affects the other, that's immoral because they should be independent. Long story short, you should be able to follow through, just not only because it's the right thing to do, but it's a moral obligation. So when I said I'm going to do TBAs, I was like, I'm going to not do TBAs, I'm going to win, you know? And I knew in my head that I could not win, but I was training to win, right? So I put some stuff in the back burner. So now I'm going to rearrange the things. So we have the Glory event next week. Now, put Glory back in this very first, So you kind of rearrange things. And I'm working towards being able to focus on only one. That's ultimately my goal by the end of the year.
Okay.
And that's kind of the challenge right now.
So you do obviously a great job of understanding your goals and prioritizing them. And you mentioned that you did write it down through this practice with Easton at the beginning of the year. I want to be a national champion. I want to win a belt, right?
Yeah.
Do you do that on a regular basis? Do you write down your goals, and does that help you, or do you find that you just say them out loud and you live them and you tell your friends and family? What does it look like goal setting for you?
To me, I am very critical of myself, and I almost see myself as a separate entity, right? Because you know how it is. Sometimes you say do what I say, not what I do, right? If somebody comes and asks me for advice, I'll probably give them a different advice I would give myself.
Yeah.
And this year has been a lot about giving myself the same advice I would give anyone else.
I love it.
And this cancer episode really pushed me to doing that, because like a friend of mine did a GoFundMe for me, right? And I'm like, fuck, man, I don't want to take anybody's money. But if somebody came to me saying that they had cancer, the first thing I would tell them is to do a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me to learn to accept everybody's help the same way I would have helped them, it was hard. So, to me, the whole prioritizing thing is just being honest with the things you can do and the things you can't do. And the things you can't do, sometimes you just can't do it right now.
Yes.
Maybe later,
Yeah.
Maybe you're just missing a skill, or maybe you just, because, something that I agree with, it's never going to be the right time. Mm-hmm. You're never going to have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I don't even pay attention to, because it's always going to be bad.
Just make it happen.
Yeah. It's all about your attitude. And maybe it just takes some time for you to work up to having the right attitude. As long as you're working up to something, to getting to where you can move to where you want to go, then you're doing something worthwhile. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't even know if that answers your question. I forgot the question in the beginning.
I kind of forgot it too.
That's
so
okay.
So take me back to the beginning of your martial arts journey then. So when did it all start? When did you start the Chinese boxing, if that was the first thing?
So when I was 17 or so, and like in Brazil, bodybuilding was big. Like it had a training in Brazil was very influenced from like the 80s bodybuilder guys like Lou Ferrigno and
you
Arnold.
Still see it.
It's still huge, right? Yeah. So when I started lifting weights, like exercising to just like be healthy or whatever, I wasn't really big in sports. I was always unathletic.
Mm-hmm.
I was always getting into fights because I was bad at soccer, which is the only sport in Brazil, right? Yeah. And then I started playing basketball, and I wasn't really good at it. I just couldn't understand it. Nobody really taught me, right? They were like, oh, you're tall, just go. It's like, right? So I started lifting weights, and I was like, okay, that's kind of cool, whatever. But I've always was into superheroes and fight and samurais. I've read every single, not true, but I've read tons of books about samurais and the philosophy. And
our producer's huge on it.
I knew the history of Japan from the 1100s all the way when they started becoming actual samurais.
What's that book you're reading?
Shogun by James Clavell.
Is it called Shogun, the book you're reading? Yeah, he's reading. His mom just got him some I guess he's read this book like multiple times called Shogun, and it's about a samurai, I want to say. And his mom just got him some like leather-bound old version of it. Super cool.
Yeah, there's so many books. Hagakure is supposed to be the Bible of the Bushido. That's what my tattoo is.
Oh wow!
It's the 8 virtues of the Bushido code, the samurai code.
Very cool.
And I was huge. I was such a nerd, man. I was like the 1100s when it was just a free for all, unto the 1600s, or it was like 18. I think it was 1868 when the Meiji Revolution happened. Whatever. I was a nerd. And then I've always liked the philosophical base around the whole fighting, right? Mm-hmm. Because samurais, as they were tax collectors.
Right.
That's what they were.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole philosophy thing happened after, when this one guy, this one shogun, stabilized the country, and they had 200 years of peace. And then the samurais had to make themselves relevant by becoming this beacon of this guides, right? Of like a moral thing to strive for.
Spiritual guide almost.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to be strong, but also smart and also creative and philosophical. And that's kind of where my interest came to being good at a lot of things. You know, if I'm going to do it, I don't need to be the best. You know, I just need to be good at it.
Yeah.
And then once I find the thing that I'm really in love with, that's the one I'm going to try to be the best.
Yeah.
But like simple things like handwriting. Your handwriting has to be good. You
enough.
can't just have a shitty handwriting. And it doesn't mean anything, you know what I mean? But it's something that is important. Those details, you know? So I was really big on the samurais and, you know, Dragon Ball Z, all that stuff. So I was like, you know, fighting would be a cool thing for me to get into if I want to do a sport. And then actually I started training with the crew that used to train Minotauro.
Wow.
Yeah, and I forgot his name. I'm sorry, forgot his name. He actually passed away a few years ago with a heart attack.
Wow.
I started there, but I just didn't like the culture. I didn't like I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble. Fuck it. I'm in another country. But I didn't like the knucklehead culture of...
It's kind of that older school style, too. I mean, the first gym I went to was very much, you spar, someone gets knocked out, drag him off the mat, next guy get in there. So...
Yeah. Third or fourth class I've ever done, right? This guy's like, it was before class. It was like, come here in the ring. Let's spar. He just beat the shit out of me. 2 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And then my mouthpiece falls behind the ring. I pick it up. It's full of hair. So I go to the bathroom. I don't even say anything. I just go to the bathroom to clean it up. And the guy's like, oh, do you want your mom to go clean that for you? I was like, dude, it's full of hair. 1, 2, how do you expect to keep your fucking students? Yeah. And I was 14 or 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, fuck this place, you know? Yeah. So I left. And one of the biggest reasons why I left is because I was already so deep into the whole, not only you have to have the physical aspect, but also the moral and philosophical aspect of martial arts.
But your interest is peaked at the very least at that point.
Yes. Yeah. But I was like, oh, this is cool. You know?
Yeah.
And then I found a friend of mine was training with this guy, and we used to train at his house. Like we were like some fucking Karate Kid stuff. Like we helped him with construction in his house, like dig holes and stuff after training. And he was huge on this part of the spiritual, transcendent part. Like you have to be strong and ferocious, and that's going to make you a better person, not just fighter, you know? And he set up my mentality for fighting in the best way possible, because he, you know, people are like, oh, Kung Fu is just forms. And we come from this lineage, this old Kung Fu lineage from China. And the style is called Hunga. And it's the 5 animal styles. The same that the guy on Tekken does.
Yeah.
And it's a southern style known for his ferocity and power. And all the guys who are big, like the grandmasters from China, they're all massive. They're strong. And that's always something that I've always wanted. I never wanted just like, I just wanted to and kill someone, right? So especially when I was young, I was like, fuck yeah.
Liam Harrison style.
Yeah, exactly. But like 100 pounds heavier.
Sure.
And then, so that's when I started training there. And then I was really like, we became family. Like he would call me, like, you're coming today, right? Me, my brother used to train with me at a time. And it was just like 5 of us and him in his backyard. And then we would train everything. And that's how it kind of started. And then 9 months in, I had my first fight.
Wow.
It was a Sunsho fight. It was a tournament. And I fought this guy in Sunsho rules. Back in the day, I didn't even know what softball was. It was softball the whole time for whatever reason.
Is that in Brazil?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a few fights in Brazil. So that was 2018. I won that fight somehow. I won a medal.
2018 or 2008?
Sorry.
2008. Okay.
I was like, 2008. Yes.
So you've been going out 11 years almost.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. That's when it started. Then we had a few fights, but it's hard to fight kickboxing fights there. So I would have like one fight every other year.
Okay.
So I would train. And never have fights, So when I got here, I had 5 fights.
What got you to make that move? What was the initiative to move from Brazil to the U.S.?
I had a work experience program. Like, I never thought I was ever going to visit another country, let alone move, right? So I came for a work experience program. One thing led to another. I went back to Brazil, and then I ended up coming back. I'm actually on the works to getting my citizenship this year.
Nice.
Which reminds me I have to go deal with that.
Some responsibilities.
It's nerve-wracking, man. It's just a weird time to be an immigrant.
Oh, yeah. My dad's Colombian, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah, my one side of the family is very Latino. I'm also Irish Polish, is why my complexion looks like this.
I can tell you're very Latino. But yeah, it was kind of like and it was never something like, oh, I'm moving to the United States to pursue this or to pursue that. It just kind of happens that it's easier here. But I came for total different reasons.
Yeah, of course.
So,
and
I
kind
of was like, okay, I'm already here, so I might as well.
And you stumbled into Easton? I mean, that was the first gym you walked into?
Yeah, actually. So I was really depressed the first month because it was me and my ex at the time. We were like, she had her life, right? So she was working and I was like, no friends, no job.
Did you speak English?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least that, right? But my English was like normal. I remember the first time I went to Subway, that restaurant, and the guy spoke so fast, all these words that I never used before. Like, why would I ever use lettuce in Brazil? You know, I could talk, but I knew how to say beer and not lettuce. And I was like, dude, what? Calm down. So, and I was just at home, man, and I was like, fuck. And I just Googled gyms. I was like, at that time, I was envisioning maybe one day being a pro and maybe doing MMA and stuff. And then I found Easton, and I was looking at the coaches, and I saw Tyler Toner.
Mm-hmm.
And to my surprise, like good surprise, was he's the nicest son of a bitch.
The nicest guy.
Super nice guy. And then when I went there to like check it out, I came across Ian Lieberman. He's the general manager at the Easton Denver.
Also an incredible human.
Dude, that guy makes me feel like an asshole.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Because he's such a nice guy. And he makes me want to do a good job just because he is who he is.
And not surface level nice. He's nice the whole way through, getting to know you, being, a person on a personal level. Like, not just, hey, how are you? Great, good.
Yeah. And he's not the kind of person that blows smoke up your ass, you know. He's not going to be telling things just to make you feel good.
Yeah.
But you can tell. You can tell when people are just being genuine and when they're not. And he came to me, like, even after I won my belt, I was really sour because some people that had actual interest on me winning the belt didn't reach out still. Like, I don't care about praise, but it was an important person that should have said something and didn't, and he came and did.
Because it's important to you. You set a goal and you accomplished it. It's a big deal in anybody's life, whatever the goal is, even if it's small. But this is big. So, I mean,
And it's kind of like, we were talking about it, like, I don't want to blow it up, but he was a person that was involved with the journey towards getting it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And didn't say anything. And I was like, man, that's kind of sucks,
Mm-hmm.
But Ian has, not that he doesn't have any interest on the actual win because it's a belt for the gym that he's general manager in. That none of that felt like that. He just genuinely was like, damn, that was a great performance. Just in the sense of like two people who are good at something and understand performance and what it takes to perform, you know? And then he said that. I was like, man, you're fucking cool, dude.
Yeah.
I love you. Yeah, Ian is the best, man. Ian is the best.
So you met him when you first came into Easton, and you kind of were like, this is home.
Yeah. That's basically what it was.
And then since then, so how many fights did you have before Easton?
I think it was 5, yeah.
Okay.
I have this one fight that I didn't count.
Sure.
Because it was the craziest. This is one of those stories that people are like, what the fuck? Brazil must be a shit, So that fight I don't count, but I had 2 Sunshow fights. I had 1 Muay Thai fight. Oh, shit, that was it.
Okay. And then you moved to Easton. How long were you training at Easton before you took another fight?
I don't remember. It was not that long. It was probably a few months.
Okay.
And we did a smoker at Oscars.
Okay.
And it was funny. All my fights have some weird shit that happens. Everybody, like, Dustin Bollinger is one of the coaches at Easton, and he was fighting at that day too. And a bunch of other people that we trained together, but we were not friends yet.
Yeah.
Dustin and I were really good friends from that day forward, right? And I remember us sitting, everybody nervous. I was like peeing every 2 seconds, right?
Yep.
And then we looked next like this, looking at who's gonna fight who, right? Because you don't know until you weigh in there. And there was this one guy. He was like this huge dude, looked like he came straight out of prison with like shitty tattoos all over his body, just ripped. And everybody's like, well, at least I'm not fighting that guy. I was like, guess who? And then I fought him, and it was fine. It was just like, I got obviously gassed at that time. It was like 200 whatever pounds. He got gassed too. It was a messy, ugliest
As
fight.
most smokers are.
As most smokers are, exactly. But yeah, it was a crazy experience, and then we all became friends. That's actually when I met Toner.
Oh.
When I actually met him, he was on my corner.
Okay.
And I remember him saying, stay behind the jab. And in the middle of the fight, I was like, I have no idea what that means. And it might have been the language barrier, because now I'm like, duh.
Sure.
All I had to do was throw the fucking jab, and I was probably
funny,
not,
though.
And I was wearing basketball shorts. It was a shit mess. But that's how it all began. So
Cool.
I probably did another smoker later. One time we had a smoker at Easton where nobody showed up. Was the very first ones. Nobody from the other schools showed up. So they got me to do a fight against Cody Muma, which back in the day was top light heavyweight MMA pro in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
He went to the qualifying rounds for the Ultimate Fighter.
Wow.
He was huge. He's retired now. I haven't seen him in a while, but I was like, what the fuck? I'm going to fight a pro? And I was like, I don't know if I hit him and then he's going to hit me back, or like, do I not hit him hard?
Yeah.
It was crazy. So like, people, this is like somewhat changing the subject, but
Yeah.
people take their amateur record way too seriously.
Yeah.
It really means shit.
Yeah, it's just about the experience.
Yeah, like one fight I lost was a final in the state tournament. It was a few years ago, and I definitely hit him way more than he hit me.
Mm-hmm.
But the times that he was getting to the clinch, he was just showing some knees that I thought he wasn't scoring, but he was for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Where now, for the new Colorado rules and the IFMA rules and stuff, those knees wouldn't have scored because they were not being thrown with intent.
Yeah.
They were just touching. And at the time that...
So it looks active.
Right. But it's still a loss that if you look at my record, it's going to be there.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a loss that means shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's, wins and losses. I don't take them as seriously. Now,
Sure.
A-class TBA is something that I kind of see it. Like the loss that I had last year was huge because it really helps me visualize and get inserted into the biggest scheme of things instead of just having an isolated fight here,
Mm-hmm.
isolated fight there, an isolated fight there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I had that fight and that loss with those rule sets, and then I had another fight.
But then you came back and won it. I mean, so you're talking about this Colorado State Championship, but then in 2014 you won it.
I won it first.
Okay.
That was 2000.
Got it.
That must have been 2015.
Okay.
Funny story. I actually won the 2014, and then when I did it again, I think it was on 15, I beat on the first round the same guy. Yeah, and it was at a different weight class too.
Oh wow.
Because we saw each other in the weight class on the weight room for the weigh-ins, and then we saw each other. Was like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm in a different weight class this year. He was like, me too. I was like,
oh no.
Fuck. So yeah, I lost. I won the first fight. I lost the second fight on that year, and then it wasn't until another year since I fought again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a inconsistent ride where back in the day when I was training a lot, I wanted to fight all the time, and nobody would get me fights, or like I don't know what it was. I was always bugging people, can I fight or not?
Yeah.
And then now that I don't care as much, everybody wants me to fight. I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Now I'm old.
I feel like that kind of is, I mean, it seems like it's a little bit more prevalent than at least I thought at the beginning before, getting more involved in martial arts, where I thought it would, be easy to get fights. Like you see the pros and they've got 60 fights, 100 fights in Muay Thai.
Yeah.
but it's not that easy to get fights in Colorado or in the U.S., especially in Muay Thai, and consistently. So you do see these people with maybe they're training all the time, but they're only fighting once a year, every other year, and it's kind of been your journey to a certain extent. You had these championship years, and then years in between where you're not getting as much, as many fights.
Yeah, and that's why it's so cool that you guys are doing this for Colorado Muay Thai.
Try to.
Yeah, because that
exposure.
gives exactly,
Yeah.
and not only that, but it gives people the media to show other people that don't know what the fuck it is.
Oh yeah.
And then they're like, oh, that looks cool. I'm gonna sign up for a class. And then now there's instead of 5 people trying to find fights, there's 20.
Yeah.
And now it puts the pressure on promoters to have more events, to have more promoters or more. Yeah. And that ultimately is going to make everything better. Because, in Thailand, it's easy to have 100 fights in 1 year, you know what I mean, if you want to.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, people like you, like your story and people seeing it that maybe aren't fighting quite yet, it resonates. It's like, oh, this is a normal guy. He's got a life. He does other things. He's got hobbies. He's got other passions, but he also fights. A fighter doesn't have to be the end-all, be-all. That's why I think the journey as a martial artist is much more attractive than just a fighter that fights. And that's it.
And little do they know, but like we were talking about Kevin Venestrin, he has a job too.
Yeah.
He has
a lot of these glory guys, right?
A lot of the glory guys have a job. You know? And
you
see even Stipe, he's a firefighter or whatever.
Yeah.
People have their lives. So if you don't take meaning more than just going there and winning that one day, because winning a fight doesn't mean you're better. Winning a fight, you were better. At that one time, you were better than the other guy.
Yep.
And that's it goes by fast, If you're not taking more value than that, then you're really wasting the true meaning of this journey,
Yeah.
And there's way more value to be taken than just going there and winning, But yeah, you're right. Like I see a lot of the people who just signed up, oh yeah, man, I just want to go and fuck people up. Like, they're going to fuck you up too.
Yeah.
Don't forget that,
Yeah. You're not, I mean, a lot of people, especially people that don't train, they envision a fight as, oh man, I go out there 1-2, he's out.
Yeah.
In reality, you also have to take the punches. You're not thinking about how every time you get hit, maybe you're holding your breath and that's draining your energy and yada. So, I mean, you've dropped a ton of knowledge, but what, if you could think of one thing that you would tell someone just starting out their martial arts journey or that does desire to be a fighter, even if maybe it's misguided as far as what the goal is, what advice do you think would be helpful for someone starting out?
I feel like the biggest advice I can give is be honest. Be honest with yourself, with your limits, with your expectations, and with who you are, right? Because I can't tell you how many people I see signing up for class and be like, I want to be world champion. I want to be the best. And when it comes time to train, they're fucking around. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's what we talked about. If you don't want to be a champion or you don't want to be a world champion, you don't want to be you don't want it, that's cool if you don't do it.
Yeah, that's
but
okay.
if you tell me that you do want it, then you have to do it,
Yeah.
And these are people who are not honest. It's just cool to be like, oh yeah, I want to be the best in the world. And I want people to, really what they're saying is that I want people to look at me and know that I could fuck them up.
Yeah.
But there's always somebody who can fuck you up too, So that's not the right way to get into it. You have to get into it honest with who you are and honest about what you're trying to get out of it, know? And this might be a little difficult when you start, but once you get your expectations beat out of you, then you have to kind of reassess it,
Yes.
How many times you get injured and you're like, man, this is so fucking frustrating. Or you get beat by somebody you think you shouldn't have been beaten by or whatever. And you're like, it's frustrating. I don't want to do this anymore. Or it's frustrating. I'm the best still. You have to be honest. Otherwise, you're just kind of douchey.
Yeah. And you're not getting better.
Yep.
Man, awesome. It's been great talking to you. So if people, our viewers and listeners, if they want to follow you, your music career, your fighting career, your glory career, how can they follow you online?
My Instagram. Follow my Instagram is _TheWarriorPoet. I wanted to put my music and my fighting together.
Love it.
I could not find a better name than that.
I love it.
_TheWarriorPoet. That's probably the most focused. I put all my media with music. I have a single coming out. Fights, training.
You have a single coming out.
Yeah.
Check it out. Cool.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. I'm going to put it on Spotify. The link's going to be on Instagram.
Sweet.
I'm really excited.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, check him out, _ the Warrior Poet. Check us out online at theprizefightingbusiness.com, on Instagram at prizefightbiz. Like us on Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks a lot, Pedro.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Love you. Sign that banner before we go, too.